I'll be reacting to another Brett Maverick video. This time, it's his hair transplant results after 6 months. Let's see what he has to say.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. It's Brett Maverick here. I hope you all are having an awesome day so far.
I am. It's a little early, but it's awesome.
It has officially been 6 months and 2 days since I got my hair transplant in Turkey.
I mean, my initial impression is that it looks like it worked. The hair is looking pretty good.
About 6 years ago, I woke up one day and noticed that my hairline was receding.
I remember this.
So after many years of deliberation and lots of research, I finally decided to hop on a plane and fly to Turkey to get a hair transplant.
I think I saw a headline they did like 1 million hair transplants last year, 2022. It's a lot of surgery.
I got it done by the Dr. Sirkan Aging Clinic, and I got 2,400 FUE grafts. And this is how it looked directly after.
And that's really high density for, that region of just the hairline, sort of anterior frontal scalp. And it just goes to show you how many grafts you can put into a pretty small area, right? Imagine someone who's bald, right? And you need to put that density throughout the entire kind of central scalp where it's the DHT sensitive area. Imagine doing that density throughout. I mean, you're looking at like 10,000 grafts plus, right? And that's why it's really difficult to get someone who's like a Norwood 6 or 7 to fully, restored condition. This is the reason, because this is how many grafts you can put into such a small area.
And yeah, this is 6 months. Some of you may have seen my 4-month update. Since then, not too much has changed, but either way, I'm going to show you, for those of you that are interested in, following along or considering getting this done, what you can expect around the 6-month mark. So here, I'll get close in. Hopefully I'm still in focus. But yeah, this is it. I think
So yeah, I'll give my initial thoughts. It looks to me like they have single hair grafts right at the hairline. Some are a bit thicker, but for the most part, you could tell that they've tried to put finer grafts, and that's good. And then after that initial zone, then the grafts start to get thicker, and that creates some naturalness. The irregularity at the hairline is also overall pretty good, and so I think it's working for him, and I think the shape of the hairline is good. It's definitely relatively low, but it, I'm sure, worked with his goals and his overall facial composition. We have a weekly newsletter that covers different hair restoration topics, and every single Monday we send this out, and people are learning a lot. We have over 1,500 people who have subscribed to the newsletter, and they're reporting that they really love it. Head to hairlinesnews.com and subscribe to our free newsletter.
I think the hairline looks pretty good. You can let me know what you think down below. And then here's how it's looking in the back. Because as you know, if you saw the procedure vlog, then there was a ton of scabs in the back. That's where they pull the hair from. I'll put a picture up.
With a broad distribution of harvests and really good donor hair density, it really shouldn't be too obvious that he's had surgery, and that's the case here.
And yeah, you can look as close as you can, and I don't think there's like any sign that I had a transplant. As far as the back goes, I think
if he shaved his head, surely there would be small circular scars, but even then, likely you'd have to really get up close and someone would have to tell you that, oh, he had a hair transplant, for you to detect those scars. And that's, again, one of the really nice things about FUE versus an FUT scar, where even if it heals great, there's still this line across.
Yeah, this is 6 months. Everything has been pretty smooth. One thing I've noticed is that in the moment, it seems like such a shitty recovery, but then ultimately time just goes by so fast. I can't believe it's already been 6 months. It's crazy. So
yeah, I tell people that at like 10 months, roughly, you have 90% plus of your result. And it takes about 1.5 years for like full results. So at 6 months, he's still relatively early, and he's showing signs of great growth, which is good.
So I'll do a quick little speed run of how things have gone. After the transplant, I immediately developed a huge scab in the front where the transplant happened, and I had to start sleeping on my back. You can't be, rolling over your face. And
yeah, from days 6 to 14, we tell patients to start to work out those crusts a little bit at a time in the shower, lathering shampoo, usually like baby shampoo or mild shampoo, over those grafts, and with each day you should get more and more of those crusts off.
Dislodging the newly planted hair grafts, you got to sleep on your back, which took a few days to get used to, and then had to do that for about 1.5 weeks, I think, maybe like 8 or 9 days. And you're not allowed to work out for about 20 days. I think I made it like 16, 17 days. And then
Yeah, for working out, that's a common question that I get. I tell people 1 week of no sweating, so really no exercise for a week. And then I tell patients they can slowly introduce some exercise, but like really going on long runs or very hardcore weightlifting, I would wait 2 weeks.
when you go outside, you have to wear this little dinky black bucket hat to protect your hair from the dangerous sun rays. So I think I had to do that.
That type of protection is important just in general, definitely in the first month. Even after you've recovered from the hair transplant completely, you definitely still want to be protective, just basic precautions from the sun.
I think I had to do that for a whole month before I was allowed to apply any product or wear any other type of hats.
After about 2 weeks, I tell patients they can pretty much go back to wearing whatever hats they need to wear. And after 3 weeks, really all the precautions are over with. So it takes about 3 weeks for people to go back to life as usual most of the time.
Yeah, this is the hairstyle that I've been going with. I go with this hairstyle because you'll notice that the hairs that grow in, they grow in all wonky and curly and kind of crazy because...
Yeah, again, like I appreciate that the clinic that he went to really tried to put single hair grafts in the front. Are they all single hairs? No, but definitely the attempt was there, and that's really important. And overall, I think they did a great job. And the overall like direction and angulation of the hair looks quite natural for him. So I think it was definitely a win.
They're new baby vellus hairs, and they don't really know any better. So apparently they say that after a full year, then they should start to normalize.
Sometimes it can take more than a year for that kind of wiry type of texture to start to improve. It can be several years at times. And why exactly it comes in that way, I don't think anyone fully understands, but it is true that the hair that grows in usually is a bit more wiry in texture and does improve over time.
So about after a week, the scabs in the back of my head started falling off when I would wash my head. And the one in the front, the big scab in the front, that actually stuck around for 2 weeks. And by the end of the second week, it should pretty much be gone. But that wasn't the case for me. So I had to go in with a toothbrush and actually just break them apart and kind of like rub them off because they were so like congealed and stuck together.
And that's partly because of the density at which they were placed. They made it difficult to work out those crusts.
Rubbed off the scabs on the transplanted area. There was a bunch of little baby hairs underneath. So that was really cool for a couple weeks, but then happened the dreaded shedding phase. About half the hairs, or probably more than half the hairs, just fell out. I guess the hairs fall out because they have to make way for the new baby vellus hairs to grow through.
Yeah, it's just that the hair goes through the hair cycle. So the fact that it was transplanted send the hairs into the more kind of telogen exogen phase of the hair cycle, and eventually they fall out. And then the anagen phase, which is the growth phase of the hair cycle, starts anew.
So there was about a 2-month shedding phase where there was just clumps of hair missing and it looked horrible, but eventually new baby hairs grew in its place, and then we were back on track. And since then, I just ignored it and let the hairs grow. And
we call that the ugly duckling phase.
One thing I mentioned at the 4-month update was that there was kind of this odd space in between the front line of the transplant and then the rest of the transplant. And I was a little nervous about that. I think since then, the hairs have gotten a little thicker, so it's started to kind of like blend in better. And
the way to minimize that effect is to have fewer rows of single hair grafts. So if you just have basically like 2 rows of single hair grafts, immediately behind those you start placing your heavier hairs, not right at the front, but starting closer to the front. So that transition zone of that kind of lighter appearance is then minimized.
I think it would look better if they put even just a few more hairs in between that little gap.
It's not uncommon with a hair transplant to go back for a smaller touch-up procedure to increase density. What I say in my other videos is that it's not a failure of the initial surgery if you have some areas that just lack density or, could use some additional grafts. It just means that you need a touch-up procedure. Now, there are ways to really mess up hair transplants, but in his situation, overall, I think the result is nice, and he might benefit from another, let's say, say 400, 500 plus grafts to additionally line that hairline, and maybe even upwards of 700-800 grafts for just several rows of improvement there. And that is an option for him if he chooses to take it down the road.
If you're going to go get a transplant, maybe address that and make sure that they don't leave some sort of gap, but I guess we'll find out. So,
Remember, you need some degree of healthy spacing between the grafts that are placed for them to actually survive and be able to get the blood supply that they need to grow. Also, you don't want to destroy the skin that's in that area too. So you can't always have the hairs as close as to, like, say, your original hair that's on the side that's super, super dense, especially in Brett's case. So it's not uncommon to want some degree of a touch-up procedure. Touch-up rates are probably in the ballpark of 15 to 30% in most clinics.
A lot of people have been asking what I've been doing for maintenance. I also addressed this in the 4-month update. I have been using ketoconazole.
It's an antifungal type of shampoo, and it helps to a degree with minimizing inflammation of the scalp and maybe regrowing hair to a degree. It's a type of medical therapy.
Man, I can't think of the name of it. Shampoo every other day. I just apply it normally and wash my head normally. I can do that again. I can wash my head normally again. I think after a month, you're allowed to wash your head normally. And also I'm using minoxidil foam. I just use the foam. I apply it right behind. I apply it right behind the transplanted hairline.
We switch most of our patients over to oral minoxidil these days and away from the topical. The oral form is taken once a day. The topical you need to apply twice a day. Many patients don't like the way that the foam feels in their hair. And also the oral formulation is much stronger. It's still very safe, and the side effects are rarely an issue with oral minoxidil. So most patients really love that switch to the oral minoxidil. Also, it could have some improvements on beard hair, which is a plus for many patients.
I think it's not so important to get the minoxidil on the newly transplanted hair because, as far as I know, it's DHT resistant, so the new hairs are permanent, so they won't fall out ever.
That's an interesting question of, like, will the transplanted hairs ever fall out? And if you go back to his FUE harvest, you'll see that some of the areas that were harvested were from areas that are not traditionally considered donor safe zones. And that is one of the disadvantages of FUE technique, because to do FUE and to get a large number of grafts and to minimize the impact on the donor area, you tend to expand out over a broader area. But when you do that, some of those sites might be areas that might thin out over time. Again, if you're not on medical therapy, but they could thin out over time. And so if they were to thin out in the donor area, some of the hairs that were transplanted might also thin out. It's a nuanced point. It's one that we don't talk about enough. So keep that in mind, that it's possible that even your transplanted hairs might to a degree fall out, at least partially, gradually over time. And that again brings up the importance of something like finasteride to reduce the continued fallout of hair, not just at the recipient areas, but also at the donor. And he hasn't said anything about finasteride yet, but I do wonder if he's taking that. Many patients try to avoid finasteride because of its potential sexual side effects, which are, real. They could happen. And we talk about that at length in our finasteride video, so check that out. But that is the strongest drug that we have in our armamentarium for hair loss prevention. So for Brett, that is definitely at least a consideration. Now, some people try it and then they have side effects and they stop taking it. Other people will resume at a lower dose and take it less frequently, and they're able to control the side effects but still get some gain for their hair.
Other than that, the doctor recommended that I get on finasteride. And I actually got the prescription, I got the medicine, I got it in my cabinet, but I haven't started taking it yet just because a lot of people I know have had pretty bad side effects, like depression, erectile dysfunction, acne, stuff like that. And they say that less than like a couple % of people experience this, but I've seen so many comments of people.
Yeah, online there are, many forums where people talk about their experiences. In the literature, the numbers are very, very low as far as post-finasteride syndrome goes. And the overall rate of actually developing a sexual side effect, for example, is somewhere in the range of 2 to 3%. And what I tell patients is that if you're relatively young and you're investing into a hair transplant, not just the financial investment, but the investment of your time time and energy and going through the whole recovery process. And the fact that if you're kind of lowering your hairline and you have now these DHT resistant hairs right at your hairline, what you don't want is that later on you start to lose hair further back. So you have this really youthful hairline, but then the areas behind it start to go. So I think for many patients, finasteride should be a very strong consideration, especially if they're, say, under the age of like 40. And even after that, sometimes it can be very useful. But the progressive loss of hair in the DHT sensitive zones definitely starts to slow down as you get into, say, your 40s and beyond. But it's those younger years where you have to be, just smart about the overall, again, strategy that goes into not just creating great hair for a few years, but creating the appearance that you'll be happy with for many, many years to come. And if you're considering medical therapy to help keep your hair as healthy as it can be and try to preserve it for as long as possible, we will soon be launching our own line of medical therapy for hair. And to stay abreast on the latest developments, go and sign up at signup.feelconfident.com, and there's also a link in the description below. And we'll keep you posted on our progress.
That have had those bad side effects, and even close friends of mine that reached out and said, hey man, just so you know, be careful. I had post-finasteride syndrome, and that's something I want to definitely avoid, so I don't know. I got the stuff. I just haven't started taking it yet. I don't know. I might just hold off until I can get my hands on some topical finasteride.
So topical finasteride, similar to topical minoxidil, is going to overall be less effective than the oral form, and it'll have a lower risk of side effects. But again, the oral form is going to be a more potent, more effective treatment for your hair. So there's definitely a balance between effectiveness and risks
that I can just apply so it's not in my whole bloodstream and maybe not as potent.
Definitely not as potent, but it's still in your bloodstream, and that's actually how minoxidil works as well. It's not like you're rubbing it on and it's just somehow very locally affecting the hairs. The reason it's working is because it's getting absorbed into the bloodstream to a degree. There's a lot of vasculature in our head and neck area, and so it's getting absorbed and it's creating that impact, whatever its effect is. Minoxidil increasing generally the anagen phase of the hair cycle. Finasteride, as you guys know, blocking that conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. So the effects are still systemic even if the medication is applied topically.
Also, I heard that saw palmetto is another natural substitute for...
Saw palmetto is definitely an effective DHT blocker, and it is something that we are putting into the shampoo and conditioner that we're custom designing from scratch. And again, even saw palmetto, it's going to be less potent than finasteride, but could still have some of those same side effects that some people will dread.
But other than that, yeah, that's it. I'm just letting this stuff grow. Trying to look off in the mirror in the distance to see if I didn't up my hair too bad. Yeah, probably doesn't look good, but whatever. Anyways, so yeah, here's how here's it'd be nice if I could talk, right? Here's how things are going. Let me know down below if you have any questions at all, and I can try to address them in a future video.
Listen, props to Brett for sharing his journey. It takes a lot of guts to be so public with a surgical journey and covering his experience with hair loss and what he's trying to do to improve on it. We're looking forward to additional updates from Brett. I think overall things are looking good. The small point that he made about that slightly lower density in the front, that can always be addressed later on. And, I think, yeah, he's doing great. So props to him, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.